Good morning to you folks. This is Omar Sprout with the Tilted Lawyer. I am joined by Melissa DeCastro and producer extraordinaire Dominic, and we have a heavy topic to discuss this morning: the recent shootings in Georgia at Apalachee High School, whereby Colin Gray is the suspected killer. He's been facing charges. His father is also facing charges of second-degree murder, and an unprecedented move by the district attorney over there. There's been cases where parents of school shooters have been charged with crimes. Never, however, to this degree. So we're going to talk about all of it. We're going to get to some of your questions coming up next. You're going to stick around because this is going to be a good one.
Whatever you might be going through and wherever you might be, this is Omar Serrato with the Tilted Lawyer Podcast. I'm here to take your mind off of things. Yes, I'm an attorney. No, I'm not giving you legal advice. We're going to sit and talk like people, as these are the candid thoughts of one practicing attorney, and it's after hours. So have a seat. Feel free to have a drink and join me. Let's get started.
So corrections and retractions. The name of the shooter was Colt. His father was Colin Gray. My apologies for that. There's been a lot of moving parts with this case so far. A lot is unknown, but I'll tell you what we do know. The suspected gunman is in custody. He was in court, I believe, this morning, where he was formally charged with specific crimes, as well as his dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's not eligible for the death penalty because of his age.
The kid?
Right.
Yeah.
But he is eligible for a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Mm-hmm.
Realistically, what I think is going to happen, if he's convicted, he's probably going to end up with a life sentence with the possibility of parole, maybe after 25 years or something.
You're talking about the dad? Or
The shooter.
Okay.
The shooter. Why do I say that? It's not out of defense for the kid. Just historically, when you get these kinds of heinous crimes, most of the time, the judge is loath to give the supreme maximum sentence. Now, listen, there is a lot of controversial feelings towards how do we categorize a 14-year-old killer. How do you go about empathizing with him and looking at him as anything other than a killer when he's a 14-year-old child? There are some of you out there that would empathize with his young age and despise what he did. There are some that are more calculated in your assessment of the young man and say, look, he did what he did. He's going to get what he gets. I'm not here to judge either side, and I'm not even really sure what my opinion of it is. Only to say this, that at 14 years old, being the dad of an 18-year-old, she was most recently 14 years old. It's always hard as a parent to watch any child who he looks like a child. There's nothing about that boy other than what he did that spells out grown man. Nothing.
Mm-mm.
Nothing. When I look at him, I want to send him to his room. When I look at him, I want to take him out to the backyard and show him how to pull weeds. I want to take him out to the driving range and show him how to hit a golf ball 300 yards. I want to take him out on the wrestling like a kid.
Omar's dad profile just showed up.
The hell does that mean?
That means Dad Omar. You have different perspectives, in my opinion, because I work with you.
Yeah.
So I've seen Dad Omar.
Mhm.
I've seen Boss Omar, Husband Omar, Attorney Omar, etc.
Well, they're all related. Here's what we know. He's in custody. The 4 people that were killed, Mason Schermerhorn, he was a 14-year-old student. Christian Angulo, also a 14-year-old student. There is Richard Aspinwall, a teacher. He was the defensive coordinator for the varsity team over there at Apalachee High School. And Cristina Irimie. If I'm butchering those names, again, I apologize. But that's what we know. The adults killed were both math teachers. Aspinwall, like I said, was an assistant football coach, specifically the defensive coordinator at that school, according to the school's website. There were 9 other people, 8 students, 1 teacher, who were wounded and hospitalized, all of whom are expected to survive, which leaves us with 4 ultimate victims when it comes to the crimes that are falling against these 2 individuals. So the suspected shooter, we call him the suspected shooter, knowing full well that he was probably the shooter, will be charged with murder. He's going to be tried as an adult. There's no juvenile court for this kid.
Not for that.
He was questioned by law enforcement last year several times for using a Discord account where he was making threats about shooting up a school.
Everything is on Discord right now. Like
There
with
were
kids.
I didn't know anything about Discord until maybe a couple of months ago, and now we have a Discord. Matter of fact, if you haven't already done so, join the Tilted Lawyer Discord. There's lots of shenanigans that happens in there, including the ability to stay up to date with our show and communicate with all of us directly.
I saw a pattern when I moved here. Like the threats and stuff like that started coming from Craigslist and Reddit. And then they slowly migrated to Discord. And I know this because I have when I moved to the States, I think my little cousin was 10 and then the other one was 12. So they were really young. Right now they're 17 and 18. The 12-year-old did show me what her friends and people from her school were posting.
I'll tell you what, there was the internet is not a safe place.
No, it has never been.
For children. I try to do an experiment with Dominic. And
Omar, not even for adults, young adults, like for nobody.
You should be safe on the internet if you're an adult because you should know better. So bullshit to that. All I'm saying is, I tried.
How many women have been kidnapped because of that? I'm being dead serious.
Could I make a statement? Could I make a statement? If you get kidnapped as a woman, most of the time, you know what? I'm not going to say it's their fault because some people don't present as kidnappers, but it was, oh yeah, I'll definitely meet you off of Craigslist at 3 a.m. in some dark place that I've never been to in somebody else's house and not knowing anything of the situation, knowing anybody to vet for this guy or anything whatsoever. If those people answer those calls and they go there and something happens, you can't tell me that they shouldn't have known better.
You think they really present themselves that way in
Some of them do.
2024?
I don't know how people present. I know that some wolves present as wolves. Some sheep present as sheep. And there are some wolves who present as sheep and everything in between.
Exactly. But anyways.
All I'm saying is I tried to have Dominic do an experiment last week and he effed it up somehow. I wanted him to pose as like a 13-year-old girl.
A 13-year-old girl from 2024 or 2007?
I had him do this last week.
Okay.
I wanted him to pose as a 13-year-old girl. I didn't want him to say anything. I just wanted him to say, hello world, I'm 13.
Hi world.
And I wanted to see how many people and how fast it took for people to start DMing this child who were obviously adults. I saw it on another podcast, Valuetainment. They did something similar. There was this hacker who I guess has reformed himself, and now he's trying to go about keeping people safe on the internet. And then he was going on, I created an account of a 13-year-old girl, and within 60 seconds, I had 18 direct messages, all from people, some who were adults posing as children, and some straight out adults posing as adults, sending them dirty messages and all that kind of thing. No child is safe on the internet. And it just, gosh, when my daughter was 12, I remember her getting on Roblox. That was her introduction to the internet.
Yes.
My daughters, 4 and 5, are now into Roblox, but they played on the PlayStation, not online, where,
Yeah, what they haven't.
Which is bullshit, by the way, because it's so easy to buy Robux on that game on the PS4. It says, oh, look, I want this VIP, whatever. I want the magic lightsaber. And then it's like, hey, if you click yes, then your a payment method on file will be charged. And all I got to do is click yes.
Daddy's card.
How do I have a $5,000 PlayStation bill? What happened?
You just reminded me of my dad.
Oh, well, there's no Roblox on my PS4 and PS5 anymore. I've outlawed it.
That's good.
Also, they don't need to be on the internet. What was that?
No.
There's been a lot of, I don't know if you guys have been seeing, but
Use the mic, sir.
there's been a lot of recently there's been a lot of like streamers and YouTubers that do like the Chris Hansen type videos.
Yeah, I see those. I so despise those kinds of folks. I mean, good for them, but like they're copying off Chris Hansen, and like they're just so obnoxious.
Can you elaborate on that, please?
What, the Chris Hansen thing, where they're posing as 13-year-old girls, and then they're out on these stings, and then they plan like a meetup with like a child, to do sexual things. Then they meet with him. Oh, haha, just kidding. We're not a 13-year-old girl. We're actually the internet
Creepy adults.
ped patrol or whatever. There is some good ones though, where I saw on TikTok, there's this one guy that goes in there with like his whole crew, and they meet up with this guy, and then they start slapping him around, and like, I'm gonna call the cops. Like, go ahead, I'll take the assault charge. You take the ped charge. And then nothing happens. Like, wow, they started beating the shit out of these guys. I guess that's the logical look. So it's going to escalate, and something bad is going to happen. Let's not let us regain our focus. Let's talk about this boy, Colt Gray. So Gray was questioned by law enforcement last year regarding several anonymous tips about online threats to commit a school shooting at an unidentified location and time. That was according to the FBI Atlanta and the Jackson County Sheriff's Office. And at that time, there was no probable cause for arrest, so they just kind of left it alone. So here's a timeline, a vague timeline of the shooting. So Lela Sarth, student there, said that the suspected shooter left the classroom at the beginning of their Algebra 1 class. Jesus, Algebra 1.
Middle school.
Some don't get to Algebra 1 until they're in high school.
Excuse me?
I was one of them. I was not math proficient.
Oh, hell no. What kind of school did I went to? You know, I did up till calculus 2 in high school. I had to. I was forced. I had no other option.
Hold on. Let me give you in honor of your achievement, a crisp $10 bill. And congratulations with that. I hope it serves you well. Jesus.
I'm dead serious. I was forced. I didn't have a choice in high school.
So this student says that the suspected shooter leaves the classroom at the beginning of their algebra class around 9:45 a.m. So we're talking maybe first or second period. When he returns near the end of class, he knocks to get back in. Another student goes to open the door, but Lela said that the student noticed the gun and didn't open the door. She then said that the shooter goes to the classroom next door and just starts blasting.
Okay. From what I got, he exited his classroom.
Yep.
With the gun in his...
No, he leaves the classroom, comes back, he's armed.
Okay.
He knocks on the door to get back in.
They don't open the door.
Because they see he has a gun.
Exactly. And then he goes to
the next
another
door.
Classroom. Exactly.
I don't know if it was vacant or not, but he goes to the classroom over and he starts opening fire.
Omar, I did not go to a public high school or middle school or elementary or anything here. So you're going to have to help me with something.
Okay.
So, I mean, this is just for security purposes, but when you are going in school in the morning, do they check your bags or something, or you just walk straight?
Not when I went to high school. You just go into school.
What about you, Dominic?
I know that after the Columbine that they started having people pass through metal detectors. Like in the late 90s, the Columbine shooting.
Yes.
Early 2000s, that became a thing. I don't know how long that stuck around because I was dropping off my daughter at high school last year and she wasn't getting passed through metal detectors. And so there was a time where security spiked and then it dropped off because of people complaints, and yet we still have school shootings. So look, your children are not safe. You don't know what is going on in other people. Well, those are easy to have. I mean, every house nowadays has a surveillance. I'd imagine every school has surveillance going into every hall and every nook and cranny. There's no reason not to.
It's just I'm trying to figure out how he snuck that inside.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a big question. The sheriff's department received the first reports of shooting around 10:20 a.m. Law enforcement gets there shortly after those calls, in addition to 2 school resource officers assigned to the Apalachee High School. A resource officer confronts the shooter, who immediately surrenders to the deputy and is taken into custody. which is, usually those end a different way with the shooter taking their own life or some kind of a shootout. This kid,
it's just voluntarily.
I wonder about his state of mind. I wonder about a 14-year-old. I mean, what did he think was going to happen? I mean, he clearly had ideas about this going back a number of years. Like in his brain, he's holding a gun and he's going around, he's shooting folks. And now law enforcement is there and they probably scared the living shit out of him. And how quickly does he surrender? Now, you could say that, he was a coward, but he's also a boy. He's probably still afraid of the dark. He probably doesn't like to go downstairs by himself because he saw The Exorcist last week. My daughters are like that. I don't want to go to the bathroom by myself. What do you mean? It's like daylight, but the hallway is dark. It's like, okay, I'll walk you over there. He has a kid brain, and so the fact that he surrenders to police, I just wonder the degrees of change of mental psychology with this kid going from, the hunter to the hunted. And as a pubescent boy, it's just, I don't know, another topic for another day. But so when the shooting happened, all schools in the district, they were placed in lockdown, obviously. And police are sent out of an abundance of caution to all the district high schools and, to check on it, see if everybody was okay. The FBI and the ATF get involved. They're later on the scene working with local and state officials, according to Attorney General Merrick Garland. So in terms of the most recent investigation, this is what we know. There's no reports of secondary incidents or scenes. Law enforcement has decided that this is an isolated incident. And according to this specific incident, the gun that was used in Wednesday's shooting was an AR platform weapon, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. Sort of like if you go on a Dominic's Instagram.
Oh my God.
The one that he was effing around with on 4th of July, said, hey, look at me, my AR-15. And he's like trying to flex and show off his guns. Like, you want to mess with me, bitch? With his bleached blonde hair. So what was that about, dude?
Bleached blonde hair.
He was going through a phase. He certainly was. He has this AR platform weapon. Apalachee High School received a phone threat earlier in the morning. Warning. Now, this is critical. Warning that there would be shootings at 5 schools and that Apalachee would be the first, which is why they go to check up on all these other schools in the district. GBI Director Chris Hosey said that there's no evidence of other schools being targeted, but investigators are pursuing any leads of potential associates of the shooter that was involved in this incident. At this point, there's no evidence that any additional shooter was involved and no evidence of a list of schools being targeted. Now, if you want to take back this timeline all the way back to perhaps the origin of him getting this idea that this was someday going to be a reality, in July of 22, Colt Gray's family was evicted from their home by a Barrow County Sheriff's Department in July of 22 for failing to pay rent. This kid doesn't have
a stable household.
He wasn't granted the best poker hand. Let's just say that. He's transient at this point. As part of the eviction, sheriff's records show deputies collected 3 firearms at that time, including an AR-15 and at least 1 hunting bow, and kept them for safe keeping. The weapons were later released to the owner. So this case is really instructive. If you have children and you're raising children and you're of the sorts to collect guns, weapons, bows and arrows or whatever, lots of good people do that. Second Amendment rights are a thing and people exercise them. I don't personally have any issue with people collecting those kinds of firearms. But now we're in a situation. What if your kid grows up and shoots up a high school? Of what consequences should befall the parents? In this case, in a completely unprecedented move, dad is being charged with multiple counts of second-degree murder, carrying with them 15-year maximum sentences each. He could potentially spend the rest of his life in prison, depending on how the sentencing falls in place. So that was back in July. In May of 23, the FBI receives several anonymous tips about online threats to commit a school shooting at an unidentified location and time. The online threats included photographs of guns. According to the FBI, the Jackson County Sheriff's Office then interviewed Gray, who was 13 at the time, and his father, Colin, who said guns were in the house, but his son didn't have access to them. Colt denied making the threats online. And I guess that was that. Jackson County alerted local schools. Authorities determined there was no probable cause for arrest or to take any additional law enforcement action at the local, state, or federal levels. My question is, look, you're going to be hearing about this case for years to come. There's no question that the school district is going to face scrutiny for how they handled this potential threat. There's no question that at some point, somebody's going to say that, look, they were notified in the morning. They knew about this guy way back in May 23, and they did nothing to protect it. And so to what extent are they culpable for these deaths? Talking wrongful death lawsuits, you're probably talking about multi-million-dollar settlements. There's no chance. There's not some local Georgia attorney that's going to not take up the cause on this case and get something started. And there's a strict statute of limitations on these kinds of things. They got 12 months. So within the next year, you're going to start seeing these lawsuits start rolling in. In December of 23, approximately 7 to 8 months later, Colin, the suspect's father, purchases the gun that was allegedly used in the mass shooting as a holiday present for his son. Not Call of Duty, not like a
present,
as a
Christmas
gift.
present for a 14-year-old.
Yeah, it's not even like a Christmas story where they're going to give him the Red Ryder rolling block BB gun or whatever, where he's going to shoot his eye out. He gets him a straight up AR-15 style weapon with live ammunition that could take real lives. Most dads would default, like, I don't know, a paintball gun or something, but this guy goes a different way. And again, it's not against the law. However, it is against the law to put your child in peril, give him a firearm, and not properly supervise him, and which leads ultimately to what we're talking about today.
People are going to hate me. How do you fucking properly supervise a 14-year-old with a gun? Those two words should not even be in a sentence together. Properly supervise a 14-year-old with a firearm.
I mean, just standard right off the top. You should have a gun safe, and that gun should never be taken out.
Straight from the top, you should not give your 14-year-old a firearm. I'm so sorry for all of you people here in the United States that absolutely adore and love having and collecting guns, and you are 21 and older. That's great, but you don't give your underage son a gun. You just don't. I don't.
Especially after making those threats too. Like that just doesn't make sense.
Well, I'm maybe gonna cut some slack on the dad at this point, because maybe, and I'm saying maybe because I really don't know, maybe he had no idea or he did not see this before. So I'm just gonna leave it there. But anyway, there's no, in my, however conservative, whatever brain you want to put it in, I don't see the point of giving a 14-year-old a firearm. That's it. Like, it doesn't just make sense to me.
Well, I mean, the ownership problem, the ownership issue is a problem. Like when you say he owns the gun, like you gave it to him as a gift, so like he's storing it in his closet. So it's like access. Anybody could have access to it.
We don't know. In his underwear drawer.
It's fine to take your kids hunting or whatever, but you have that in a gun safe, and the gun only comes out when you're supervising your child and you're going on the family hunting trip or whatever.
And it's yours, and you're the one who stores it, like you said.
You shouldn't be owning any kind of a firearm like that.
No.
Under any circumstance. I agree with you. I'm all for the Second Amendment and all, but that should not extend to those that are not capable of handling a firearm. And under most circumstances, I can't say under no circumstances. Back in the 1800s, we had 13-year-olds fighting in the Civil War.
Yeah, but that was a different, like you said.
There's no reason for a 14-year-old to own a gun, is the point.
At this point, no.
So August of this year.
Okay, that was a month. No, almost a month ago.
It was like a week ago.
Yeah.
A panic button system was implemented at Apalachee High School just a week before the shooting, which by all accounts saved lives, according to teacher Stephen Kreinbull. On September 4th, around 9:45 a.m. on Wednesday, Colt left a classroom at the beginning of his Algebra 1 class. We talked about the student Lela. He returns. The student says that he had a gun, was unable to get back into the classroom, goes to the classroom next door and opens fire. The Barrow County's Sheriff's Office was notified around 10:20 a.m. So you're talking about a clear half hour after the shooting, and arrived shortly after with 2 school resource officers. A resource officer confronted the shooter, immediately surrenders to the deputy, takes him into custody. The shooting left 2 students and 2 teachers dead, a bunch more injured, 9 injured.
Mhm.
During questioning, Gray told investigators that I did it. He was, there's no hiding it. He saw him do it.
A lot of people saw him also.
He was later booked into the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, where he's going to be tried as an adult. He now faces 4 counts of felony murder in connection with the shooting, which is the easiest way to bypass. It's just the easiest way to get a murder conviction, honestly. The max would be sentenced to life imprisonment. Well, death penalty. He's not eligible because of his age.
Omar, I see that they're trying, like they're also putting his dad on the spot. What about his mom?
I don't know anything about the
They
mom
haven't.
so far. And which is a great question. We're going to talk a little bit about his family. But
Or siblings,
I think they know enough, where having spoken to him going way back last year, that whatever was going on between him and guns was like him and the dad's thing. And so I don't know, what if you have a child and your husband decides to buy your 13-year-old son a weapon and just doesn't tell you? Because women don't need to concern themselves with such things. And then you find out after the fact.
No.
Oh my God, that pterodactyl laugh. Do you do that laugh to your husband when he doesn't wash the dishes? When he fails to take out the trash?
But when he's like, I'm going to do something you're never going to find out. I do that. And I'm like, you really think I'm not going to find out?
Why do women try to get their husbands to believe that they are psychic? I will know because I have woman's intuition. If you do anything, I'm just going to feel it in my guts. It's like, that's not what you're feeling, young lady.
I never mentioned that.
Bullshit. You literally just gave him a cackle.
Oh,
The witch's brew cackle.
I'm going to find out,
instead,
but not
I'm
because
gonna
I'm
find
a
out.
psychic. Not because of that.
All right. Well, at least you're reasonable
These
about
men
it.
are idiot. They don't know how to hide things. That's the best part.
Jesus Christ.
They always leave a small loophole or a small trail in which you find out stuff. And then you're like, oh my God, we suck at this.
So Rachel Liner, who was a math teacher at Apalachee High School, she describes what she saw. She says, first of all, I'm not okay. I started in the classroom next to mine. I lost close friends. My job is to teach math. I love kids, and I have fun while doing it. She thanks people for reaching out to check on her, but she reiterated that nothing about yesterday was okay. We literally did everything right, and somehow this still happens to us. I did my job. I pushed the emergency alert button. I had my door shut and locked. I got my kids in a corner. We prayed. I did everything right. Hoped my family next to me was still alive while listening to the screams in the room next door. I guess, there's something that happens to a parent when they drop off their children at school. It's so difficult. Like when your kids start out and they're babies, they're toddlers, you're like hovering over them. And when they're newborns, it's like you can't leave them alone for 5 seconds because you want to make sure they're still breathing, make sure they didn't like turn over on their side or on their back. One day is going to come where, oh my God, your baby's not in the same room because they learned how to crawl and didn't tell you about it. And so you'll find them in the kitchen or whatever. You go into the playground with them for the first time. They go in the jungle gym and you're like, they're ready for them to slip and fall because they're going to bust their face. Something's going to happen. And then the time comes to drop them off at school. As I've had a daughter just graduate high school. She's been through the whole process, but I have 4 and 5-year-olds that are just starting, and you leave them there and you're leaving them in the care of some other person that you pray is not a sex offender or have weird sex proclivities or is going to keep your child safe or have anger management issues where they're going to get mad at your kid because she had an accident and start shaking them by the neck, as we've seen happen multiple times in other cases. When you drop your children off at school, you just don't know what's going to happen. And it just so happens to be they can make it all the way to high school. And then some dipshit little shit is going to bring an AR-15 because I don't know what, he was bullied last year in school. He didn't make the varsity football team. He got turned down when he asked, I don't know,
somebody out,
some lady to the prom or whatever. And he has issues. He doesn't know how to talk to girls. His dad is beating him up at school. And so now everybody's going to be in peril because he has some kind of a mental breakdown. It's the reason why we have mandated reporters to try to identify those things at the jump. And in this case, they knew like a year in advance that this was a thing. Even if they didn't have probable cause to arrest, they knew that something was going on. My question really becomes, at what point do they force this kid into some kind of a therapy, keep an extra eye on him, like what's really going on? I just don't know what the school did or could have done to prevent that. Because I'll tell you what, the second that anybody proposes any kind of fix for a measure, it's always, that is an infringement on our liberties, and I'm just not going to do it. It's not constitutional. I'm going to, you're going to put on your red hat or you're going to put on your blue hat, and we're going to have this political argument about it, when really all it's about is trying to keep the children safe. What's the answer to this? I don't know, man. I know that Bush proposed a lot of things that the other side didn't agree with. I know that Obama proposed a number of different things that nobody agreed with. I know that Trump, nobody agrees because people are so hell-bent on protecting their Second Amendment rights. They think that any kind of controls that are legislated and designed to make it harder for people to bring weapons out into the public, into schools, is somehow an affront to their Second Amendment rights. And it's bullshit.
It is bullshit.
Because it's like, and when we have
American said it is bullshit.
When we have these cases, it's like, oh, I want to pick the real estate agent. I want to pick the real estate agent. It's like, dipshits, you guys both want the same thing. You're trying to get the most money for the thing, right? Who effing cares? What, you think they're just going to like screw you over and get some random kid to sell? What are you doing? Fine, we'll select three. You pick one of the three.
That's
and we
it.
gotta,
we call it a day.
Just the other day, what were we talking about? The order of names on an agreement. It's just people get so caught up on this.
They get
what is
stupid shit.
The underlying issue? If it's keeping the kids safe, then let's not try to impose Second Amendment arguments into it, because nowhere in the Second Amendment does it allow for a child to take a gun into a high school and start
or
shooting
any
folks.
Public place. Doesn't make any sense.
I agree. So whatever legislation comes out of this should never be interpreted as a Second Amendment issue. But people are going to try to make it about that.
As they always do.
And we can't do anything about it.
It's just
about what people want to attach themselves to.
It's just astonishing the fact of how many people really do take this seriously, like you said, like a threat to the Second Amendment, but that there's others problematic in the society that are going on and people just don't give an F. They don't care. And they're fighting over guns. It's stupid. And much respect to everybody, but this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. No underage kid should have access to a firearm. Period. That's it. Leave it there.
Now, the fact that you even say that, people are, oh, this little girl, she's just a bleeding heart liberal. She's part of the blue wave. Ocasio, AOC, what is her name?
Do not put me.
I will not. But there are others that are going to that will paint you as a left-wing extremist just because you said something like that. I don't care who you like. I'm just saying that people will incorrectly try to take you and your position
pin me there
and call you an extremist and try to discredit what you say. There's a lot of people that are the ringleader for that. One of them is running for president. And so make of that what you will. I'm just saying that there's no reason to turn this into a political argument. Let's just ask the fundamental question. What measures are necessary legislatively and that are reasonable within the confines of the Constitution to keep our children safe? I think that's the main question. Getting back to this, let's talk about this alert system. Now, we in our office, we have like a panic button.
Mm-hmm. We do. We have a system.
Yeah, so they had something similar, but they're wearing badges that have this panic alert button and are to be able to press the button to alert law enforcement of an incident. It's curious to me that the shooting occurred at 9:40 and the officers weren't on scene for like another 40 minutes after that. So I wonder when the first button was pressed, why did it take them 40 minutes to get to the school when they were already alerted? At what point was the school alerted that there was going to be a string of school shootings in the morning? Was it prior to the shooting? That part to me is not clear yet.
I think they mentioned something that earlier that week. I think that was it.
Mm-hmm. Which meant that they should have been swarming that place. Even if there was no incident, they should have been swarming it.
As they did with the other places. Because they were supposedly, police officers were also patrolling the other schools in the district that were in the threat.
So let's talk about this kid. Who was Colt Gray? 14-year-old student. Obviously, he's been arrested now and since charged with 4 counts of felony murder. We know who the victims are. He was previously investigated for these 23 online threats. We know about that. He admitted to having a Discord account, but he claimed to have deleted it after moving. When his family was evicted or something like that, along those lines. The FBI had received multiple tips. That was it. That's all they really have on him was this suspicious Discord account referencing Adam Lanza, who was the perpetrator of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting that has been in the news now for over a decade. They closed the case because of insufficient evidence, and that's just kind of where we're at. His family, his mother, Marcy Gray, has a lengthy criminal record involving drug possession, domestic violence, DUI charges.
You said his mom?
His mom. Mm-hmm. His dad had bought him that AR-15 rifle for Christmas that was later used in the shooting. The family had previous contact with CPS due to concerns about Colt's well-being. I'm going to read this article straight out of the New York Post because I don't want to skimp on this. So this is coming out of the New York Post. I'm going to share my screen with you guys so you folks could know what I'm looking at. Oh, are they going to get... All right. Am I on screen there? Yeah. All right. So Colt Gray, the baby-faced Georgia school shooting suspect, was charged with murdering 2 classmates and 2 teachers, grew up in a broken and neglectful home, which police and child services visited on a regular basis. His mother, Marcy, 43 years old, has a lengthy rap sheet, including drug and domestic violence arrests. His father, Colin, 54 years old, bought him that gun for Christmas. He's now facing charges of his own. Lauren Vickers, who lived next door to Gray's in Jefferson, Georgia, said that there were problems immediately when the Grays and their 3 children moved into the well-manicured neighborhood 60 miles east of Atlanta in 2022. There were nights where the mom would lock him and his sister out of the house, and they would be banging on the door, just screaming like, "Mom, Mom, Mom," and crying. It was absolutely devastating. Vickers said that sometimes the young child would come to her backyard asking for food. No clean clothes. I'm not exaggerating. It was constant abuse. It's very, very sad. Gray's maternal grandfather told CNN Thursday night that he was just a good kid, lived in an environment that was hostile. His dad beat up on him. I mean, I'm not talking about physical, but screaming and hollering. And it did the same thing to my daughter. Charles Polhamus said, adding that the boy did not show any outward anger issues, but was affected by his upbringing.
Okay,
now,
you're telling me that Child Protective Services was aware of this situation going on?
Well,
because that's
they
what you're reading.
They were aware of it in the context of him being a victim of parental neglect, abuse, all those things.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I was going to.
Yeah.
So CPS was aware of this and they weren't doing crap?
Isn't that par for the course? How many times do we see allegations like this where nothing happens because, it's just, it's just, you know what? It's a family law issue.
Whatever.
Take it up with them. This is a civil matter. But sometimes you have all this going on and then something really bad happens and then people start pointing fingers, So now investigators seeking to understand the suspect's motives are looking into his family's previous contacts with the State Child Protective Services Agency, the GBI director said Wednesday. Colt was charged as an adult on Thursday 4 counts of murder after Wednesday's shooting at Apalachee High School in Winder. He's expected to appear in court on Friday. That was today. He's already appeared. He's already been charged. Lauren and her daughter Berlin were neighbors in the Grays. This is pictures of them. I guess these are the neighbors. This is the house where they lived. And that was a picture of the school. There's some of the victims being carried away. Colt's aunt, Annie Brown, told the Washington Post that her nephew was struggling with mental health issues and had been begging for help from everybody around him.
And nobody listened?
Before the massacre, the adults around him failed him.
Yes.
His mom, Marcy, who attended Georgia Southern University and listed her profession on LinkedIn as a quality engineer at a local manufacturer, also had a lengthy criminal history spanning 17 years for Georgia counties. This is his mom. This is young Colt. Looks to be about 7 years old right there. We talked about a rap sheet includes domestic violence, drug possession, property management, and various traffic violations, including driving under the influence. She also faces civil fraud charges over the purchase of a used vehicle and was locked up in a Ben Hill County as recently as April. She later left the family home, according to her social media accounts and neighbors. Colin's dad worked in construction. Neither parent responded to the post's request for comment. That's her mugshot right there. She's a looker, isn't she? And her dad is a stereotypical AR-15 owner that is standing on his Second Amendment rights. He will not be told by anybody that hitting it. If he wants his son to have a gun, God damn it, I'm going to buy him one and I'm going to do it for Christmas.
A sovereign citizen?
I don't know if he's sovereign citizen or not, but he's what I know about him is he's a domestic abuser. The fact that you got these children being locked out of their own house and they're like begging and screaming to get back into the house.
They're going to the neighbors to ask for food or stuff like
I've
that.
never heard of instances of that where children are locked out of the house that didn't involve other extreme forms of child abuse or neglect.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not talking about parents of the year. Jackson County Sheriff's Office visited the Gray's home in May of 23. They're talking about the FBI report again about the Discord. Couldn't confirm stuff. Colin told the cops that they kept several hunting rifles in the house, which he admitted Colt had occasional access to under supervision. The officers urged him to keep the firearms under lock and key and advised they keep Colt out of school until this matter could be resolved, but school was already out for the year. Law enforcement told the Post that in December of 23, despite the visit from the cops, Colin buys in this gun for Christmas. Weapons used in Wednesday's school shooting. And the neighbors had stuff to say. It was the mom who drew the most attention, according to them. I guess these are his other siblings. That's his mom. Jesus Christ. I would find her in the driveway, passed out with the car running and blaring music early in the morning because what is that a symptom of? Probably out night having a bender. Or she came home drunk from some whatever. This is according to Vickers, speaking of Marcy, who was, she claimed, habitually abused drugs and alcohol. She would have taken the little one to daycare or pre-K. She was driving him like that. She said Colt didn't speak much, but that she'd often see him skipping school, wandering around the woods and in the unbuilt houses at nearby developments. Asked to characterize Colt, Vickers said he wasn't a bully or a mean kid. He didn't say much. Look, my characterization of a family like that, in my experience in these cases that go against the advice of those around them, attorneys, law enforcement, school, psychologists, counselors, whatever, they're just so hell-bent on their beliefs on Second Amendment stuff that they expand it into areas that they don't belong and they turn it into a religion. They're standing on those grounds and their children are suffering. She says she called child services several times. Vickers said they came, they talked to me, they did nothing. At the same time, Gray's mother and maternal grandfather have accused Gray's father of being verbally abusive towards his family for years. He was just a good kid. He just lived in an environment that was hostile. His dad beat up on him, all this kind of stuff. So that's the kind of environment that this boy was
that this poor kid was going through.
Now, look,
battles
you're
he
gonna
had to
you're gonna
go
say
through.
that, and there's people gonna be angry with you for showing any kind of compassion or empathy towards him because the second that he pulls the trigger, the trigger and ends
Is a
anybody's
different
life.
person?
Well, it's like there's because you're a human, you will have compassion for a kid that grew up in that environment, and it's not that you're excusing what he says. It's just like F. Like it didn't have to come to that, and it's not that you show him any kind you're not excusing what he did. It's just like he's just an effing kid. He's just an effing kid. And now you want us to pull the trigger and then sit him down execution style and end his life. That's what we're doing. We're throwing him away for life. And it's like it hurts to do that because he's just a kid. At the same time, you can't help but have infinite levels of compassion and empathy for the victims because they are the victims. This kid was victimized by his parents, and thankfully his dad is being charged with something. His mom, from what I'm reading, from what I'm hearing, should not escape charges in this case.
No, that's why I asked for her in the beginning. Like
Those
nobody
children
was
shouldn't be in those
mentioning-
houses. They haven't been removed already, then they should be removed.
First of all, they shouldn't be in that household. And I read they had 3, including him. So one of his sisters, and I don't know if the other one is a boy, they should be removed.
Yeah. What's going on in the chat, Dominic? Melissa said that she wanted to let us know that she agrees completely. She was sitting back. She just wants us to know that. There's people talking shit in the chat.
No. Everyone's kind of agreeing.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well,
They're saying another one just happened too as well.
today?
Yeah.
Get the F out of here.
wait, what?
Where did this happen?
I'm not sure. Let me look.
Well, part of my degree is sociology.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in one of my classes, they were taught by 2 social workers that were 25 and plus years in the field.
Yeah.
And in one class, I remember they were talking about shootings, school shootings, and minor kids and stuff like that. The vast majority of the time, and this is one of the examples, all of those cases rail back to the family where kids are showing multiple alerts of, hey, something's going on with me. Please help. And everybody around them just ignores them, including family members, including the school, including everything. And then they just act when things like this happen. And I'm not going to say the child is blameless because no, that's not the case. He has blame in this. Of course, he was the one who did what he did.
Yeah, but
I mean, to rail back to what he was being, school is like 40% of your time. Let's say when you're 14.
I mean, it's probably most of your time, honestly. When I was in school from like 7 a.m. until like 6 at night because wrestling practice.
Because okay, let's put this kid at 2
Mhm.
because I mean, this doesn't look like a family that encourages extracurriculars. Let's put him 2. I would give him, let's say Monday or Friday, let's say 40% of the time or 45. The other 55% was his family and the surroundings he had.
Mm-hmm.
School maybe was his escape, if we could call it that way.
Well, look, children are fragile. You notice when your kids go through these they have these little existential crises, and it starts really early. My daughter's first one that I could recognize was she so wanted to be a mermaid. She kept getting mad at herself because she couldn't breathe underwater. She so wanted to be a mermaid. And then she found out it was impossible. How does she reconcile in her mind that she's never going to be Ariel?
In her little 4-year-old mind.
She was 3. She's since advanced beyond that, but they have at all these stages, like you're just thankful that you're there to guide their thoughts and to guide their hurts and to guide their dreams when they discover that they can't be a Ninja Turtle, when they discover that they can't pick up a truck like the Incredible Hulk, when they discover that they can't jump.
That's hard.
22 feet like the Olympic athletes over there, that they can't break dance like Ray Gunn from Australia. Do you even know who that is? My God. Dominic knows. He gave me a laugh.
The other one was in Maryland, but it was like an isolated situation. It started with like an altercation, which escalated to a stabbing and then to a shooting, but they already got him.
Stabbing. You know what this...
Like a shooting.
Now that you mentioned stabbing, there is this case that happened in my hometown, and I am unfortunately very close to it because the guy who did it is my best friend's husband's best friend.
What is it? What is even that? Your husband's best friend's best friend.
My best friend from childhood.
Okay.
Like, since I was 3.
Okay.
She married this man.
Okay.
Okay. The person that stabbed somebody is his best friend.
Yeah.
I met him. I had seen him multiple times. So what happened was these two were 17 at the point, I remember. And they were at a mall. It was a guy and a girl. They were dating. And then he took her to the 3rd floor because apparently he had a surprise. And then he like covered her eyes, blindfolded her, took her through the stairs to a place in the mall. I do remember this mall where not under construction, but it was like an empty space and the lights were down. And he stabbed her in the face.
In the face. Did she survive?
Yes, she did. Yeah. She was a month away from graduating high school.
Did she get a wicked scar out of it? Was she disfigured? What happened?
No, thank God. No, I have seen her after that. No, she was fine. You can see minor scars, but nothing like too.
She's very lucky. Because a guy gets stabbed you in the face. I mean, it could have been so much worse.
It could. Of course, she got a restraining order. Of course, he went to prison. A lot of things happened after that. Of course, nothing was the same after it.
Well, let's talk about. We're going to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to do some family law after dark. We may be joined remotely by Senior for that, by the way. We'll see. Colin Gray, father of suspected Apalachee High School shooter. He's being charged with multiple counts of second-degree murder for allowing his son to possess the gun used in the school shooting, which makes him the first parent of a school shooter that was charged with such a severe crime. There was another case out in Michigan where it was a similar fact pattern to this. And in that case, those parents were charged with involuntary manslaughter, which is not nearly the same thing as what this guy's being charged with. What stands out about, well, I assume because the fact pattern lends itself to there was no intent, like they didn't intend him to do this, just they're just being stupid and so involuntary. It's like when you run over somebody for being reckless in a car, you're not intending to kill someone, you're just being stupid.
I know what you're getting, but
that's the charge.
For example, in this case, we know it's second degree because he bought the gun. Yeah, we know that. But in the other case, you're saying it's involuntary, so they had no idea.
I don't know the specific fact pattern, but if you're going to charge a parent with this, it's the one that makes the most sense to charge with off the bat, unless you're trying to do other tricks to elevate the charges. And in this case, he's being charged with second degree and other offenses that are related to the shooting. And the charges all stem from his knowledge and allowance of his son's possession of the weapon used in the shooting. And I think here, there's a couple of things. Number one, he was on notice that there was this discord about referencing threats, referencing the Columbine, the Sandy Hook shooter. Yes, the dad. He was aware of that.
Okay, so
Law enforcement talked to him. They said, "Hey, make sure that if it's fine to own weapons, make sure that they're under lock and key. Under no situation do you let him have the gun unsupervised." So he is especially on notice. It's one thing to say, "Oh, I bought I bought a gun for the family so I could teach I bought him a gun, but I keep it in my gun safe."
That's different.
You're intending to use it like on a hunting trip in Arkansas or somewhere.
Yeah, but that's like you said, that's completely different. He has possession of it and he only takes it out when he's there and under his supervision, and it's taken back.
The other differences would be that you have no reason to believe that he would harm anybody with it. In this case, he had special notice because of law enforcement's visits to the house, the suspected threats and all those other things. Not to mention the rich family history that they have in the house, involving violence and abuse and all these other kinds of things. I don't know what the full extent of the charge is going to end up being, but I'd imagine that they're probably going to also try to tack on, if they haven't done so already, multiple counts of child abuse, child neglect. Obviously, he's going to lose his parental rights. Hopefully, he'll lose his parental rights. He has no business being the father to anybody.
Hopefully, all of them do.
There's still young children there in the house, as far as I'm aware.
Wasn't he the youngest one?
I don't know if he was the youngest one or not. I saw pictures where there appeared to be. Oh, you know what? There were younger children, but he was a young kid himself, and so that's what I'm looking. Yeah, I think he is a. Well, I don't effing know. I don't know what the names of all the kids are, but if there are younger kids, then they should not be subjected to that kind of lack of supervision. Is all I'm trying to say. So they're charging him based off of that, his knowledge and allowance of his son's possession of the weapons. The charges against Colin, they're unprecedented. And here's the main thing, that there were warning signs regarding his son's potential for violence, including the investigation in online threats. We talked about that. We talked about that Michigan case where there was a similar thing, but they are getting for him for involuntary, not second degree. So the prosecution of Colin is significant because of the conservative nature of the county and the potential impacts on future similar cases, which leads me to explain why we felt the need to go into this whole preamble about people mixing the Second Amendment with legislating protections against these kinds of instances. There has to be a clear separation and a way that you can maintain Second Amendment rights. You're not getting rid of the Second Amendment anytime soon. It's not happening. But folks that have taken on as their life's purpose, protecting the Second Amendment under all cost, have to stop this bullshit about every time somebody threatens to pass legislation that will protect against high school shootings, and they elevate it to an all-out attack and affront to all of their Second Amendment rights. That has to stop.
I can't believe they're fighting so much.
They've been doing it for years.
No. Listen to this.
Okay.
I can't believe they're fighting like so hard to just protect that amendment to the way it is, like, and repealing every single thing that's trying to like modify it for this kind of things.
Well, it starts off like this.
And then the same people are fighting to take off the amendment that allows you to be an American citizen if you're born in this country. Like, it's the same people.
There are some people that view the Second Amendment as like a religion.
I know, like a cult.
Read just a reading of the Second Amendment, protecting the rights of Americans to keep and bear arms. That's the fundamental,
That's
right?
it. Uh-huh.
It also protected a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's that problematic language right there, that what constitutes infringement. Any regulation that restricts or impedes my ability to keep and to bear arms shall be outright disregarded. And so I promise you, and I haven't heard any well-reasoned arguments yet, but I promise you there's going to be legislation introduced as the result of this case. And I promise you the opposition will be that if we allow them to start taking this and this away, then we're just, you know what? It's going to be the end of the Second Amendment as we know it. And next thing you know, they're going to be restricting our Fourth Amendment rights, and they're going to be in our house and coming in and out whenever we want. We won't be a free state anymore, and we're going to have to secede from the union and all this kind of stuff, all that kind of nonsense.
You guys so conceited. Oh my god.
That is the correct word, isn't it? Conceited. Like, it's not all about you, buddy.
You know where I got this from? I got this from one of my gym coaches back when I was 23. He told me Americans are so conceited. And I looked at him and I was like, he's an American himself. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, yeah, over here, you're not forced to do anything. You're not obligated to do anything. This is a free state, free whatever. But I see everybody around the world doing stuff because they're forced to or because they're obligated to, which is beneficial for them. But over here, you try to impose that kind of thing. No, people blow up like you're saying it.
Well, because there's a central debate in all of that. And it's really stems back to how people interpret the Second Amendment. And then there's some that interpret to mean that weapons that are commonly used by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes are protected by the amendment. There's some that, because that's pretty much plain language of what it says. But there are others that say that weapons that are not commonly used for these purposes are not likely to be protected or shouldn't be protected. There's some that believe that it was intended to prevent Congress from limiting a state's right to self-defense. It's a completely different argument. Back then, you know, everything was cowboys and Indians over there. Like, everything was up for grabs. Everything was out in the open. You know, everything was, we were trying to build something. And so the rights of the states to arm themselves was very key. And people held steadfast to this right because they didn't want to be put in a situation where they're forced to turn over their arms and be overrun by other bigger governments. That's where it stemmed from. That hasn't been a thing for like 300 years. So the modern 24 interpretation is basically you have the right to keep and bear arms if you have them, if you want them, if it's your inclination to do that.
Over the age of 18.
Yeah, but within reason, you shouldn't be a child in high school and say, "Oh, my Second Amendment rights. Let me just holster my AR-15 in my backpack."
You shouldn't be a child in anything, literally.
And when you say that, what you're specifically stating is their mental state of a child is not equipped to handle a firearm.
No.
And then it goes in, okay, are there other mental states that are not equipped to handle firearms? The answer is unequivocally yes.
Yes.
And then we get into this whole other thing. Right?
Yeah.
And so
how's the chat going, Dominic?
Good, actually. I thought it was going to be more mixed.
I kind of thought so too.
Me too.
Dear Dad, Darak Shani says that a fraud on the American public. That's how former Chief Justice Warren Burger described the idea that the Second Amendment gives an unfettered individual right to a gun. I'm not kidding you when I say that there are arguments that are hundreds of years old when it relates to this Second Amendment stuff. And it was the thing, every time there is a school shooting, every time there's a mass shooting, and people start talking about finding ways to protect against these kinds of violences, the Second Amendment folks start making it a religious experience.
Here's where what does it say?
There is no age limit on the 2A.
There is no age limit?
There isn't.
So an 8-year-old could have one? Literally?
By the plain language of the amendment, if you were to interpret it that way, that's one way. Now that brings us into, and look, could I just get this out? The founding fathers, people that signed the Constitution
back in
1776.
Exactly.
One of them was like 18. Most of them were like in their 20s.
Yes, you're absolutely. I think nobody was over the age of 25.
They were children.
Yes.
It was written
by kids.
By children, not in a way that I or most lawyers would have written it, because there would have been clear
there's too many loopholes
in areas where it was ambiguous and up for subject to interpretation. I think we would have probably tried to restrict that language a little bit better. So now you have these competing theories of legislative interpretation. One of them is we're going to go by the letter of the word, the plain language of the statute. That's what the founding fathers intended. And then some people will be like, who gives an F about what the founding fathers were intended? They were kids. But that's one aspect of it, and it's debated even on the very Supreme Court that interprets these cases. There's another that states that the interpretation of the amendments should evolve with the times, meaning these words meant something in 1776.
But
they're not going to mean
something different.
The same thing in 24, right? And so would the legislature have reasonably made it legal for a toddler to walk into a preschool with a firearm? And if the answer to that is no, because no reasonable person would argue such a thing, then perhaps that's how the law should be interpreted. And the reason why the majority of these cases are where they're at is because of those differences in how to interpret. When you can't even argue over how the statutes themselves, the amendments themselves are to be interpreted, then you're always going to come away with differing opinions, with differing conclusions, and both of them will be right depending on how they interpreted the statutes themselves. And that's, you know what, not a discussion I intended to have this morning about Second Amendment legislation, but it is one that is necessary because we're so screwed up in how we're interpreting it, and people are willing to die for their method of interpretation. And that's why we can't get anywhere with these kinds of cases.
Strongly believe that there should be another, well, people are going to fry me alive.
Nobody's going to fry you.
Yes, they are. But anyways, help me with this, because I really don't remember. There's the amendment of the prohibition of alcohol, and then the very last amendment in the Constitution is like a repeal of that one, if I'm not wrong. Right? There is one amendment in the Constitution that prohibited the sale, use, and consumption of alcohol, if I'm not wrong. And then the very last amendment in the Constitution repeals that.
I'm sorry, Melissa. I wasn't listening to a damn thing that you said. Not a thing.
This happens every day. This happens every single day.
Well, I'm trying to look up what it is that you're talking about. So you're claiming
There's an amendment in the Constitution that prohibits the sale and consumption of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And then the very last
Oh, you're talking about
amendment.
prohibition?
Yeah. What amendment is that one?
Prohibition. That's I don't remember what the prohibition amendment was.
And then there's the very last one is the repeal of that.
Well, the last amendment was prohibits the U.S. or any state from denying or abridging the right to vote based on age.
And there's one amendment that repeals the prohibition of alcohol.
The 27th Amendment is congressional compensation.
Which is the one that repeals alcohol? There's one in there.
No, Melissa.
Yes, there is.
No law varying the compensation for the services of senators and representatives shall take effect until an election representative shall have intervened.
Stupid test on this when I was 15. I remember there's this.
Brand's saying that you're talking about prohibition being banned, then reinstated in the Constitution.
I think it's that one.
21st Amendment. It's the 21st Amendment, the repeal of prohibition.
Exactly, that one. So I strongly believe there should be something along the lines of that. Based on every single incident.
Well, I don't know about all that. I don't know if we need to repeal the Second Amendment to accomplish.
No, not repeal it, Omar. Not repeal it in its entirety, but maybe like, how do I say this? Like rephrase it or reword it in a way, like you said, that would.
Oh, that's a great idea. Why haven't
more.
I thought about that for the last 200 years? Jesus. Our problems are solved. Let's just change the wording. It's so simple.
I'm gonna throw this at your face.
I should have thought about that all along. We could just change the wording to make it more so that everybody could understand and agree. I'm just, I'm having fun.
I know. You're enjoying this so bad.
All right, folks. I don't have answers for you guys as to how to legislatively fix what's going on. It's worth talking about it, because if we don't talk about that, then what we're really doing is just covering this case for the sake of covering salaciousness and entertaining ourselves on the misfortune of others. So if we can't posit a solution for some kind of reform that would allow for protection of these children, I don't know why else we would cover a case like this. But as it stands, we have a 14-year-old child that committed a terrible and heinous act. There's 4 people dead, 9 others injured. He was the victim of harsh, brutal, and sustained child abuse and neglect that appears to be throughout his life. We don't know all of the horrors that befell this little boy, but I do know that his dad is properly being charged to the max. I wonder why they're not also similarly charging him with felony murder. I wonder if that's not an amendment to his charges that are forthcoming. But as it stands right now, his exposure is probably for the rest of his life anyway.
Mm-hmm.
15 years on all of the second-degree counts. I believe he's been charged with 4 second-degree counts. It puts him at 60 years on a maximum sentence, plus a number of other charges. He's likely never to get out of jail. Devence Moore says, not being able to talk civilly with one another is why crap like this happens. Yeah. And you know what? What always happens is we start the discussion and then we get frustrated with each other and we stop talking about it until the next thing happens and we bring it up again. And you know what? As long as I've been alive, we've been going through the same cycle.
And then friendships break, people get divorced, everybody hates each other.
Well, if you get divorced over the Second Amendment, I'm not confident in the strength of the marriage.
Omar, I am just saying, because I've lost many friends that now at this point in my life, I know that they were not really true friendships. Lost many friends by not agreeing with them on stupid crap like this one.
Well, I don't know what to say to that. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say you're better off.
People are so freaking fragile and I don't know, like crystal. I don't even know how to say it.
Arson of snowflakes.
That's a cute one.
It's good to see Arson back in the chat. He was like one of our first subscribers back when we had like 1,000. He's back in the chat now. He says the Second Amendment has killed less than abortion, but people scream all day that it's their right. Yeah, people attach whatever weight they're going to attach. And the problem is sometimes when you attach yourself to something, it doesn't matter what you hear along the way. You're invested and you're not going to give up that investment, because to give up that investment means that you've been arguing for bullshit all your life. Lots of people are like that. Lots of flat earthers are like that. Lots of people that are hell-bent on proving that we didn't go to the moon. I'm not even going to open up that discussion right now on the show.
A lot
Just
of people
saying.
are also fixated on proving that the Earth is not round.
I'm
but
just
anyway.
saying it's a thing. Listen, folks, I'm going to wrap this up. We're going to be doing Family Law After Dark in about 5 minutes. So if you haven't already done, number one, 3 things. If you haven't already done so, the best way to support the show is to join our YouTube memberships or our Patreon. You can join either. If you join our YouTube memberships, you will have access to all of the exclusive streams that we do that are specifically for a podcast. And of course, I'm never going to put all of our content behind a paywall ever. And so if you just wanted to listen to the audio show, you'll always be able to do that on Apple or Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. We're part of the Believe Network, and we do we cover these cases weekly on a almost daily basis. We put out something new. But if you are a member, you'll have access to other special things that we've done, like Poker Night we just did, where Pam Chasm is like the 2-time champion for some reason. I don't understand it, but she keeps winning. You'll have access to our cigar and wine nights that we're going to have coming up. We're going to be doing our movie nights. We're going to be doing a lot of different things. You'll be able to participate on Family Law After Dark if you're brave enough. So do that if you haven't done that already. And for everybody else, I love you all. And I hope you have a wonderful weekend. In about 5 minutes, head on back over to the family. Hey, Dominic, could you drop the Family Law After Dark link? If it's not already in the description, if you just leave it in the comments. And hopefully I'll see you guys all over there. It's going to be a crazy one. What are we talking about today? We're talking about people wanting to get divorced because wife is wearing, doesn't like how she wears her dress or whatever, and he just feels it's unfair. We're talking about people that this guy wants to swindle his wife out of all of the community property and wants to know how to do it. I'm going to tell him how it's not going to work out that way. Anyway, we got lots of good things to talk about. I'll see you guys all over there. I love you all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.